Okay, welcome to the Crow Discovery Project. As many of you know, I'm a German journalist for the Examiner now. In the description of this video, if you would like to click on that link and subscribe to the author, you can get notifications from me when I publish articles. And if you do that, I would appreciate it. I've got some very cool solar footage here, and as I sat down to edit today, this was done around Christmas, actually found an object going across the sun that I cannot ID as a satellite. So let's take. Oh yeah. I got endless emails and endless comments about some crazy person using my name in the titles of their videos. I'm aware of it, and just so you know, people do this so that they can try to get traffic. It's the lazy man's way to get traffic. If you put the title of a popular channel in your clip, you'll probably end up scooping some of their traffic. But anyhow, here is the footage with the object, and it also includes my equipment and the H-alpha solar filming system. So let's go. Here we go. Cheers. So this is the homemade filter that Croat made for the telephoto, and I don't have the doubler on. I might put the doubler on and shoot just like this. I'm going to set up the scope and put the H-alpha solar rig on it and shoot the sun for a little bit. You can see there's the sun. I can do this with the Canon. I can't really do this with the Nikon because the lens will get too hot too quick. But there it is. So I'm going to set up the other rig. Okay, so here is the footage that I got with the rig you just saw, which is just the telephoto on the Nikon, and I did end up putting the doubler on for this footage. This is the kind of solar imagery you get where you don't get to see prominences, but you do get a little surface detail, and you'll notice an object just went across, and I'll break that down better here in a minute. But you do get to see sunspots, and when you get into the editing room like I'm doing here and manipulate things, you can see some surface detail, all the sunspots. There's just not much activity on the sun right now, and when I invert it like this, you can really see that all the sunspots are very small right now. As I go across, I'll manipulate it a couple ways and zoom it in. You can kind of see that surface of an orange look on the surface detail with just that simple filter. But when I put the H-alpha video on, you'll really be able to see some cool things. And there it is, back to closer to what we see. And at the end of this little clip here, I'm going to load the object that went across. I couldn't find any satellites that were even close to the sun in this time. So here comes the object. It's going to come from the lower left. And there it goes. That's slowed down a little bit, I think, to 50%. And I'll run a couple filters so we can look at it and zoom in a bit. There it is. I drew a line. He's traveling in a perfectly straight line. He's going almost straight up, by the way, so it'd be very strange for a bird to travel this way, but I'm pretty sure that this is some kind of a craft, a satellite or something. It's the first thing I've ever filmed in front of the sun, so it's kind of cool. But anyhow, I'll show you the sky, and then we'll look at the H-alpha rig. Alright, so the whole time I've been out here filming the sun today, they have been chemming line after line after line, blocking the sun. Luckily it's been blowing to the east, but you can kind of see that there's a little frequency pattern look in the chemtrail residue. There's the last one. It's actually blowing away pretty quick. This was laid about 30 minutes ago, so it's quite a ways from the sun now. Okay, so as I had the telescope set up, and I'll show you how I did that and the whole process, these planes just kept flying. And this is one of the non-persistent trails that leaves that powdery looking junk that you can see right there with the kind of frequency pattern in it. There were also, at a lower altitude, very persistent chemtrails going on, and it's almost like the two mix together and then create what you're seeing there, the milky look. And it interfered. I mean, you can't focus on the sun. When they do this when the moon's up, same thing. You can't focus, and it messes everything up. But luckily, there was a decent breeze up high. There wasn't much breeze down at ground level, and it was blowing things to the east pretty quickly. There's the sun. You can kind of see that rainbow in the chemtrail residue. and then at points it looked like this. And so I'm going to show you the setup of the telescope here in a second, and then the H alpha filter solar rig where you can see the prominences and everything. But when the sun looked like that, actually I have opening footage that'll show you what it looks like when I'm trying to use the H alpha and the sun looks like that. But what we would do is just keep filming anyhow, because who knows, maybe there's orbs or something we could pick up in that stuff. You never know. And then we would wait until it blew away and we would get good shots, which I have. So anyhow, here's the scope setup. Alright, so here's the H alpha solar scope, and I'm going to mount it on top of this scope so that I have tracking. And it just mounts on top. I put a rail, I installed a rail on the big scope, which allows me to track off. Then I got to balance this scope, and actually I got to put the camera on before I do the balance, but it's close. So what I'll do is I'll wait till I get the camera onto the solar scope, and then I'll do the final balance before I shoot. Alright, so here you can see the HD monitor feed from the camera, so I'm getting a live feed before I encode anything. Have my little shade, and the camera's all set up. I have to block it. I don't like letting the camera get real hot all day, but the scope is tracking with the solar scope on top, so it works out pretty well actually. You can't really see the camera too well. Hold on. So what you can see is I have like kind of a Barlow adapter going on. There is a lens in the Barlow. I do it a few different ways. This seems to be working pretty well today, and that big fat cord going down is my HD feed off the camera, like if I was just putting it to a TV, which is basically what I'm doing. And then this little thing right here is a blocking filter positioner, and then there's a focus ring right here. There it is. And there it is. Alright, so here is the system. Let's see if I can focus as I'm doing this. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so there's the camera with the adapter settings, and it goes down to this monitor. So that's an HD monitor feed, and it's showing me the image before it's recorded. And if I walk around my shade, you can see, so there's the system, and I should probably put something over my camera, but the scope is tracking, and there are very few solar prominences today. Okay, so when the sun was all chemmed over, this is what it looks like through the H alpha. You can't really focus on anything. You can't see much of anything, and at some points it gets so thick up there that it just gets dark. The whole monitor goes dark. But what we do is we filmed the whole time just to see if we'd catch anything, and ironically, the only time we caught something was with the telephoto lens. So here is the H alpha filter tuned in to show the prominences. You can see in the lower left limb and the upper right limb there are very slight prominences. There's not much going on the sun on this day, but it gives us files that we can really manipulate to see what little there is. We can really bring it up to see. So when we were looking on the monitor, this left side was actually very difficult to see, and in the editing room here, after we apply the filters, it becomes the thing that we see the best. And there's back to close to normal, and when I'll invert the color again, you'll be able to see surface detail on the disc itself. You can see one tiny sunspot there. There was, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them, but they were all just really, really small. And I'll pan up to the upper right limb. Now this prominence, when we were looking at the monitor, it looked like it was, moving in real time, but now that I've got the video in here, I can see that it's not really moving that much. I did put it in and move it really quickly. But when I run find edge filters and things like that, you can kind of see that the prominences go, a third of the way up there, from about 3 o'clock to 2 o'clock in that area. But on the other side, that really low visibility prominence was really the thing to watch on this particular day. So when I take it and I flip channels and do a color inversion and a channel inversion, it brings up the surface detail that gives you that surface of an orange look. And if you run a find edge filter over the top of this, it actually adds like some motion in there, which is kind of interesting to see. But you know, I've been watching a lot of people talk about the sun, and there's some interesting ideas about what it is, but also that the sunspots are actually just holes to the inside, which I kind of think is possible because I used to stare at the sun in the mornings, and don't do that unless you know what you're doing. But once your eyes get focused, you can see the sunspots if they're big, and they do. They look like you can see into them. And here again is a color inversion where the contrast and brightness are way up. But what's cool about this is not just the prominences, but you can kind of see the rings of, you know, light radiating out away from the sun. And there's some real good surface detail, and then the lesser prominences in the upper right there. And I'll run it through a couple filters just so we can get another view at 100%. That's kind of a cool view though, but you can see when we film when the sun is active and there's no chemtrailing, so we have a good view, you can really see some cool things, particularly when there's big sunspots and big prominences. And here I'll shift to a new view again. This is close to what we see in the monitor, but it's exaggerated a little bit with brightness and contrast so that you can see the light radiating out away from the disk. But this is one of my favorite views here. So anyhow, there was the sun right around Christmas time. Not much activity at all. No prominences to speak of, very few sunspots. And again, in the description of this article, there's a link to my Examiner page, and if you subscribe to the author, which is me, I will notify you when I post articles, and I would appreciate that. So there it is. Cheers.